What's going on, Commanders fans? Is this an emergency podcast of the
That's
Believe in
right.
Commanders 5? We got Brian Murphy on the other side, quickly coordinated this thing. It's breaking news. You know what's going on here in the Commanders news. Um, Dan Snyder and Tanya Snyder are looking into selling the team. But let's get Brian in here. Brian, what's going on? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm sure that as we get closer to potentially this team being up for sale, there will be odds on who the newest owner will be. I'm sure there will be places to put bets on that. You can do that on Bet Online. I'm sure we will get those odds eventually. So check out Bet Online. Don't forget basketball is back too. Bet Online is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. You always find the latest odds and team matchup info, player nudes, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. And it's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports: NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, even golf. And so head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure you use our code BLEAV, that's Believe, to receive your rewards. Bet Online is where the game starts. And
Yes.
man, woo, I think you know what we're doing here. I think you've probably heard at this point, but man, what were your thoughts when you saw that potentially coming down?
There's that everybody knows that gif where Will Smith is like, ooh.
Oh yeah.
That's how I felt when I looked at my phone. I was like, "What?" I'm like,
Well,
"Wow!" I'm like, "He's going to sell. They're going to sell this team." Like it's something I never thought was going to happen. I really never thought it was going to happen.
I didn't either. And if if this is the first thing that's popped up on your feed, you've been in meetings all day. The Commanders put out this announcement, probably what 10:30, 11 o'clock. Said Dan and Tanya Snyder and the Washington Commanders announced today that they have hired Bank of America Securities to consider potential transactions. That Snyder's remain committed to the team, all of its employees and its countless fans, to putting the best product on the field and continuing the work to set the gold standard for workplaces in the NFL. This sounds like the first step in, I don't know how many steps it takes to sell a multi-billion-dollar entity, but this seems like the first step.
Well, I sell houses, and there's a lot of steps that are involved in there. There are hundreds of people, well, probably about 100 people that'll touch one file. I can't imagine
Mm,
how many people have to be involved in trying to make those transitions. I mean, especially on both sides. I mean, that's a lot of money, well outside of my personal pay
yeah.
range. Now, I could probably get I could pay for like a seat in a stadium. You know what I mean? Like, I'll get a
Yeah.
seat in the stadium. Like, let me get a fractional share of said team. So, man, I don't know. I was taken aback for real, but I'm sure this is a great day for Washington. For every announcement and post that came up on my feed was, just they're going to sell the team. They're going to sell the team. They're going to sell the team.
Yeah, and I think some people were speculating that this might be to sell off minority stakes to
Yeah.
potentially help with a stadium. I don't think you do that. I don't think you take this big of a step to do that. I don't know much, but it seems like I've just kind of been reading, of course, scrolling all day. It seems like this, in a lot of other instances, has been the first step in a team selling their franchise. It really does. And, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but it does seem like that first little tiny domino in what could be a massive, massive moment in this franchise's history.
Yeah, and I should say we got to take it back. It's just they've hired Bank of America, the securities, to inquire about potential transactions of the team, partial or in the whole part of the team. So they kind of left themselves open. There's a lot that could be done in this. I do lean towards it being a complete sale.
Yeah.
I don't see how, because I think the other owners have to approve any
Yeah.
sales. So I mean, they could easily be like, no, we're not going to approve a partial sale.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
I think I saw where we had. I think we've all seen that it's 24 owners to decide if an owner is kicked out. I think it's those same 24, that same number 24 to decide on a sale like this. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the first step. I did see that there was potentially a report on NFL Network speaking of those votes, that they feel like there's a potential that they could easily get those 24 votes to get Dan Snyder out. I wonder if he got wind of that. I wonder if he realizes that the writing is on the wall and he'd rather just kind of sell it on his own terms before being, kicked out.
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of went down like a scene of a movie. Just you think of just the dramatic scene. He's sitting in a room, and then in comes Mrs. Snyder, and she's like, "Hey, it's time. Like we got to do it." And I mean, I understand you trying to fight for something, and you trying to keep a hold of something that you were able to purchase. And but you mentioned it earlier, being a fan of the team. He's a fan of the team. Yeah. He saves the front spot, one of the premier parking spots in the parking lot. He keeps it for his dad. As obviously his father passed, so like he does that stuff to honor his dad, and I feel like it just had to be a moment where it just kind of came to cooler heads prevailed, and probably did help to hear that, hey, look, they're going to either force you out or they're going to let you do this where you can kind of stand up and walk out and not have to have any issues. So it's got to be a tough decision for him, but it's better for the organization.
Yeah, I think he's trying to save a little bit of face here and say that he did it on his own terms. And I think when Dan Snyder, I mean, I was only 8 or so when he took over. I don't know the exact year, but I think one of the biggest parts was that he was a fan, and you're like, oh, it's so awesome that a fan, one of us is in control, or a rich one of us, but one of us is going to be in control. And that's kind of been my thing for a couple of years now. It's like, if you are a part of the reason that something you so cherish and so love is falling apart, why wouldn't you want to get out? And so maybe hopefully he's finally seeing that and doing what is finally, maybe for the first time ever, best for this team.
Yeah, I mean, but on the flip side, I can understand where you're trying to fight, scratch, something that you've been able to build, and but I feel like I've heard this a lot. There are some times where you just got to know when it's time to cut ties, and that's going to be the best for everybody. But the one thing I can say is that hopefully this doesn't spill onto the field and create a distraction for those guys, because as a player, you hear the news, but you got to get back to work. And yes, we'll get to that tomorrow. We'll get to talk about the preview in Minnesota in another episode. But, I'm just thinking after processing it just from the outside looking in, now you got to think in the building. There's obviously going to be a little bit of a chatter, but, just hopefully the performance on the field, everything should be good on the field.
Yeah, I think I saw that Ron Rivera spoke, and he said, I have no information. I mean, he's probably gotten wind of it, like you said, but he said he's focused on Minnesota. I think Taylor Heineke is or just was talking to the media, and I think they are focused on Minnesota. I think they've got something sweet going with this 3-game run. But you're right. It does become a distraction. It's got, it happens anywhere. I work at a school. My wife is a teacher here. We had a big administrator change a couple of years ago. It affects you. It gets down to you. You hear things, but at the end of the day, just like the players, you have to come up with your lesson plans. You got to deal with your students. You got to still continue that day in, day out stuff. So I think eventually it could, as whispers start to get a little bit louder, it could affect the team, but I feel like they've got enough leaders in there to kind of keep them all focused.
Yes. And really going back to things we mentioned in previous episodes, I think you have the right guy at head coach to kind of guide the ship through a storm. I mean, it's been a perpetual storm. And so to have, Ron Rivera is the right guy to lead you through it. And I was laughing so hard earlier in the open when you were talking about odds on who's going to be next owner. I had already logged on to Bet Online. I was like, I wonder if they've already thrown something out there. I hadn't seen anything on that website, but I did. Let's see. Here's one. There's one on one website. This is from October 20th. So, I mean, you're hearing the Jeff Bezos. You're hearing the Jeff Bezos name getting thrown around.
Yeah, they're the common ones. I think I saw Steve Ballmer, who is the Clippers. Is he Clippers? I think. But yeah, it's gonna be quite the deal. It is a huge deal when a team like this comes for sale. It is so funny to me. For years, I heard people saying, "When I win the lottery, I'm gonna buy the Redskins. I'm gonna buy the Command."
Yeah.
You have to win the lottery like 10 times. These are multi-billion-dollar
Yeah.
companies, and so this is a
Yeah.
huge deal, and it's going to be somebody with a lot of money or a few peoples with a lot of money.
Yes, so this article does have it. So I guess a shout out to the folks at bookies.com. That's where I see it, the article. They have odds, Washington Commanders owner odds in 2023. And they did have Dan Snyder leading the way at, with about 33% probability. Jeff Bezos is second, hit 30% probability. Ted Lerner, not familiar with the name, but he probably has a lot of money. 13.3%. Steve Ballmer, you mentioned him, Clippers owner, 10.5%. And there's a Bedad Egbale group, about 9%. Byron Allen. Is he a Microsoft guy, Byron Allen? Maybe
I'm not
not.
sure. Ted Lerner.
6.3%. And then the field, they have at 10%.
So Ted Lerner owns the Nationals. I knew I recognized that name as well. I'm not familiar with
Oh,
the Nationals,
okay.
but Ted
Okay.
Lerner's involved there.
Yep.
Byron Allen, Allen Media Group,
Okay, I think that might be. I
Entertainment
think he may be.
Studios.
Okay, it's the black guy. Yes, that's the black guy. Yes, 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 yes.
So yeah, it's gonna be a big name or a big couple of names that'll swoop in here, and hopefully, like we said, this is the first little step, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
Yes, yes, yes. So, hey, you have some more exciting things to talk about. You definitely got
Yeah.
to check us out. You can hear us on TuneIn. You can hear us
Mm-hmm.
on, obviously, you might catch us on Believe. You're going to catch us on Believe. You catch us on Stadium sometimes,
Yeah.
and Sirius XM. So this is awesome. Yeah, it's I could just say it's probably something that a lot of fans have been hoping for and praying for and just asking for.
Yeah.
And whenever you're traveling and people are carrying sell the team signs to visiting cities and in airports, like that gets to be a little bit of an embarrassment. So yeah, I think it's definitely the right thing to do. And I'm sure, the next owner is going to be able to help, move this organization in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll talk more about the on-field stuff, all the crazy trades and all that, but we wanted to talk about this briefly. But Chase Young coming back, Dan Snyder maybe hinting at selling the team November 2nd, 2022 could be a date in history for the Washington Commanders to kind of look back on. So, we had to come talk about it, kind of get our thoughts out there. Hopefully, you guys are breaking it all down, listening to us, like Anthony said, all over the place. And when and if those odds go up, you can check out Bet Online. Use our code BELIEVE. We appreciate those guys for bringing the show. And like we said, we'll be back later this week to talk about the Vikings and all the stuff, all the X's and O's. But we had to take a second to talk about all this.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Be good.